Visit checkupamerica.org
It's amazing
or
how
call 1-800
much has
diabetes.
eroded.
A message from the American Diabetes Association.
Like you said, purposefully. These people maneuvering and, wow.
Right? Aretha Franklin, right?
And this is Karen and Lynn on Conservative Chick Chat on WSMN 1590, Nashua source for news and talk. And we have Hal Shirtlift in the studio on from Camp Constitution. And Hal, you've had quite a week going on here.
Well, I certainly
with
have.
The First Amendment, huh?
That definitely. Well, let me just back up a little bit here. Back July 28th, well, middle of June, Pastor Bruce Wall, his inner city ministry, had invited me to participate in a prayer meeting at Boston City Hall in the mayor's office, the ante room, not the inter sanctum. The mayor was nowhere to be found. He was not
Right.
sponsoring this.
Yeah.
So I went with a friend, Dr. Kishore, and there was about 30 to 40 of us singing some hymns. There was Catholics, Protestants.
This
there was-
isn't unusual. It's been done many times before.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know about in Boston, but yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, in the State
Yeah.
House, I know.
Oh, I know
'cause
the State House, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyway,
You were in
so
the
we're
mayor's
singing a
office,
few
that's good.
hymns and praying, and not political, just praying as Christians are commanded to do, pray for the city, pray for the leaders, and so forth. And as I was leaving, hey, this is a good thing. I noticed the rainbow flag flying. Of course, that's a fixture, which, by the way, commemorates an anti-police riot that happened at the Stonewall Inn in Lower Manhattan, and that's where I take that. So I thought, why don't we raise a Christian flag? So July 28th, I called the City Hall, the person in charge of granting permits. Now, about 5 years ago, we raised the Gadsden flag, and there was no problem. We had a little presentation on Agenda 21 exposing it. We didn't get any
You
media
were allowed.
coverage.
You were allowed to raise the Gadsden
Yeah,
flag.
no problem.
Okay,
No problem whatsoever. No problem.
argument.
Uh,
Okay.
Anyway, so the person in charge said, just send me, I'm afraid to mention a name because this person I think is sympathetic. They just asked me to send me an email, give me potential dates and what you want to do. And I had a picture of the Christian flag, which is a white field, a blue canton with the red cross across the St. George. And it actually doesn't go back that far. It goes back to 1907. It came out of Coney Island of all places. A superintendent of Sunday schools and collaborated with somebody else to do it. Charles Overton and I forget the other. Anyway, so I didn't hear back for about a week, and I made a phone call or email to inquire, and I got an email back within a few hours, and they said we've sent it up up to my boss and waiting to get it approved. Okay. And then I waited another week and still nothing. So I made a phone call. And the phone call, the same person said to me, you have every right to do that. I don't understand what's taking so long. And, we'll get back to you.
Sure.
So another week goes by. Now it's late September. If it was a slam dunk, you can't do it. I should have known within a few days.
Right.
So I made the call. And the same person I've been dealing with right along said, if you don't hear back from me by the end of today, it was a Friday, Monday, call my boss and leave a message, or call my boss. So I did, left a message. 2 days later, I get a call from another person saying, we thought we already gave you the permit. Well, so-and-so's on vacation. You'll get a call next week when the person comes back. I get the call from the same person I dealt with originally saying that it's been denied, and I said, can I get it in writing?
Yeah.
And
I'd
the
like to
person
know
said,
why and
yeah,
put it in writing.
give me an email, and this person said, this isn't the end of this. Obviously, this person was not sympathetic to the city's decision. And then I asked for an official explanation, which I got 2 days later. Meanwhile, I sent out a news release to the media contacts in Greater Boston and people who are Camp Constitution supporters in Massachusetts. And a lady got a hold of me, and she's a friend of mine, said, why don't you get a hold of Liberty Counsel, which is a Virginia-based 501c3 legal help. And it was 10 o'clock at night, I went online and made a little inquiry online. About 1 minute past 9, I get a phone call from the attorney, Richard Mast, and he said, they want to help. I says, wow, that was pretty, they think in this case may be a landmark case. So they wrote what they call a demand letter, saying to the city that you will either issue a permit, and here are all these legal decisions that back up what we want to do. They can't control speech, even if it's on public. They can't control private speech on public area. And there was a case, Milford versus Good News. It was a Bible club that was using a public school facility and so forth. So it's 5 or 6 different decisions. And then that was emailed to the mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh, City Council, and the Boston Herald got a hold of me, and they did a front page story Friday. So they got Walsh's attention. I mean, if the average constituent isn't buying into his worldview, they don't give you the time of day. That's just how it is in Boston. But when you threaten a lawsuit, all of a sudden it had a little validity, a little bearing. And so he said that, oh, separate your church and state. Now keep in mind, he's the same man who violates the laws that Congress passes and the President signs on immigration.
Right.
So he's picking and choosing. Now look at it. Can you imagine if we raise the flag? Jeff Sessions is going to get wind of this, and he's going to fly right into Boston and personally arrest Marty Walsh. Will that happen?
No,
Of course it's
no.
not going to happen.
Right,
They
right.
won't arrest mayors when they break the law and allow some cases criminals that come to this country, not just who have a misdemeanor it's a misdemeanor to
Right.
come to this country, but some of these people are serious criminals and they're protecting them. And Walsh, you said that he's a proud Catholic. And I thought, well, I really wish I would see some evidence of that, because he's living with a woman, unmarried. That's not a proud Catholic does. That's a shameful Catholic. He supports the notion that people of the same gender can get married. That doesn't square up with the teachings of
Right.
the Catholic Church. He supports abortion. He gets awards. When he was a state's rep, he got awards from NARA, National Association, or National Abortion, whatever, resource. And he said if Roe versus Wade is repealed, Boston will be a sanctuary city for abortions. That's how far to the left this man is.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, he's a
I wouldn't
constitutionalist.
stand next to him in case there's a lightning bolt.
Yeah, I know it.
Upstairs.
So, anyway, I think the demand letter gives the city till the end of this month, September 28th, and I fill out an official permit request form. We'll see what happens. Now, I was on the Reverend Bruce Wall's radio show this morning, and he has a lot of dealings with the city. And he said sometimes they just react knee-jerk without thinking. I said that happens a lot, not just in the city, but in politics. So they may just back up, they may not, and then that's the case. It will go further. But this story is taking a life of its own. I mean, WorldNet Daily carried it. Even University of California Law School had a story about it. It's made a lot of blogs, it's made a lot of internet stories. So, and I think it's something bigger here than just a group raising a flag. I think because it's what flag it represents. And when I was on the show today, this dear old lady called up. She said, "I'm on a limited budget, but I will donate $100 to buy these Christian flags." So we haven't decided yet. But if they deny us the permit, I've had the support of a lot of inner city pastors that they want to hold a rally, or not rally, but a prayer vigil right on City Hall, and everybody's going to have the Christian flag, and we can hold them up and don't put up the flagpoles as well. And I said, could you imagine if other people around the country have that saying, hey, you know what, this City Hall it doesn't just belong to the secularists and the atheists and the left, it belongs to us
Belongs
too.
to us as well.
Yeah.
And it seems that it's very, very obvious. It's everybody but us.
Yeah, now,
No matter where you look.
Now, I don't know how many towns and cities actually have, I would call it a public access flagpole. They have groups, the transgender people, and there's a group that's a private group, but they support the Chinese Communist government. Not only do they fly their flag, which under that banner there were millions of people had been killed, murdered, and there's still a lot of oppression going on in that country, but also the city passes resolution praising the revolution of communist China. That's how. I mean, we used to have conservative Democrats like Dapper O'Neill and Jim Kelly.
Right.
They would put up with this now. Now it's like left or far left.
Right.
That's what you get, unfortunately, in Boston. So, and most people
around
don't know
the country,
this.
by the way.
Oh, other parts of the country too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting because it's illegal in Massachusetts to fly a flag of a foreign nation on municipal, county, or state property, with a few exceptions. That there's a dignitary, an official visitor. That doesn't mean a tourist coming over here and drinking some Sam Adams beer, going to It has to be recognized.
The Pope and
Or it could be an elected official from that country. It could be an ambassador. That's the only
time when you can
do that. And all the times they've raised the flag, I don't believe that was ever the issue here. So they've raised the flag. I mean, a couple of dozen different countries, and then other organizations There's a group called the Blackstonians, they're black nationalists. They raised the flag to honor Marcus Garvey. That's not an issue with me. I said, if the flag's up there for a day or two.
But it's an issue when you will not fly the
But they won't give
Christian
it to us,
flag.
yeah, exactly. So, again, we'll see how it plays out. There's some irony here too. The Boston has an official, like most cities and towns have a flag. Nashua has a flag.
Right.
Boston flag has a Latin verse, and guess where it comes from? It comes from the Bible. Gasp horrors. It comes from 1 Kings, and it says that, now, it's funny because...
because they're acting like that.
Because Pastor Wall took Greek, he said, unless you went to a Catholic seminary, you probably don't know a whole lot. I mean, we all know a little bit of Latin, but it said basically, may God favor us as he favored our forefathers. And when I got the email from the city official saying it's a separation of church and state, First Amendment, there was the seal with that Bible verse. So does that mean Boston, the official religion of Boston, is Judaism because it quotes from the Old Testament?
Right.
Of course not. It's ridiculous,
Yeah.
right? And as I mentioned about the Vatican, did I mention this on there? Maybe I did mention it on there, but I was in Boston Common. We have Camp Constitution on a somewhat regular basis. I've been manning information tables where we give out, people take a little 10-question quiz and give them a copy of the Constitution. And we were there Monday with my son, and I remembered Pope John Paul II came to Boston. It was the first city he visited, the first time a pope came here in a capacity. I think he had stayed here in Boston when he was a cardinal, but as far as the pope, he gave a mass on Boston Common, which it was an incredible amount of people. That place was just a sea of people everywhere. And I said, I know there's a Vatican flag. So I said, I wonder if they were flying the Vatican flag. Which is almost always the case where he's outside giving a mass somewhere. So my son went on his little larger cell phone than mine, and he went to Google Images, and in about 2 minutes he had a screenshot of
The Vatican flag.
the Pope giving, he's up on the stand, and it was the flag of the United States, the flag of Massachusetts, the flag of Boston, and the Vatican flag. And when I spoke to my lawyer, I called him up, I said, I think we have a smoking gun. He says, well, maybe not, because he was there as a head of state. And I thought, yeah, that's right. And then I got off the phone with him, and I said, wait a minute now, knowing my history a little bit.
And knowing that dates make a difference.
Yeah, it definitely does. I said, the United States didn't recognize, I remember during the Reagan administration, there was some controversy, whether or not you should recognize a church as a country.
Correct. Specifically the Vatican and Rome.
And they recognized, it was 1984 actually, when the Vatican was recognized as a state, and that's when we started diplomatic relations. Because Ray Flynn, who had been mayor of Boston, was the ambassador to the Vatican. So this was 1979, this was not 1984.
So the Vatican was not recognized at that point.
No.
Interesting.
Now, Boston doesn't have the authority to recognize recognize them as something the United States does.
Whoops.
So we'll see how this plays out. But again, our goal, I had no intention. We figured we'd have maybe 40 or 50 people there, get some nice sound bites. The media would not come. One of the persons that was going to be there was Reverend Stevie Kraft. I think you might have met Reverend Steve. He's a very dynamic man, and he was going to talk about, happens to be a black man, he was going to talk about the need for racial reconciliation and how Christians were supposed to be the light and salt and light of the earth. We're supposed to be the peacemakers. That was our job as Christians. And coming together, blacks and whites and Hispanics or what have you. Then it was a friend of mine. He's from the south, from the Sudan originally. As a teenage boy, he was tortured by the Muslim government for his faith. He got out of there, and he's got an incredible story. But he wasn't gonna bash any religion. He was just gonna say the blessings that he has enjoyed and the freedoms unparalleled. And he's raising his family. He's now a U.S. citizen in Western Massachusetts. And we were going to invite some other people, give a little history of the city of Boston, and it's incredible history. There's some good. There's a whole lot of good. There's a little bit of bad, along with any great city. But
well,
and
it's
then
true everywhere.
That's history.
And then raise the flag, and it would have been there for a day or two, or until I had my friend who works there to fetch it for me. So. Because we raised the Gadsden flag about 5 years before that, and it stayed up there for about a whole week.
Nice.
There's another interesting too. I was going to bring the flags in, but I didn't realize you were on being live streamed. But there's the Bunker Hill flag, which is a flag that commemorates the Battle of Bunker Hill. That was actually used by militia units in New England during the War of Independence, and it looks a whole lot like the Christian flag.
Does it?
The only difference is the Christian flag has a white field, the Bunker Hill flag has a blue field. The Christian flag has a blue corner, the Bunker Hill flag has a white, they call it a cant in the upper left. And it has a cross, the same cross, and it has a pine tree. a little pine tree that's on one of the
Yeah,
crossbars.
yeah.
And the pine tree represented opposition to King George, because the king, all the pine trees, all the forest belonged to the king
Right.
in America, and because he needed them for his masts.
Mhm.
So if you cut one of your trees that are a certain size, you were in big trouble. So it was really a sign of rebellion. And they fly that flag on City Hall Plaza every June to commemorate the Battle of Bunker Hill. You know, so I actually have some footage of the flag being raised here. So it was kind of interesting. Then you have flags of foreign countries. Some of these countries have incredible Christian symbolism. The Portuguese flag, it has 30 stars, represent the 30 pieces of silver and it actually had some symbolism to commemorate the battle, the victory over the Muslims, or the Moors, but the
Yeah,
Muslims.
right.
And very politically incorrect flags, I might add.
But they're flying them happily and gleefully,
Yeah,
but
that's
the
right.
minute that you ask to fly the Christian flag,
That's
Well,
right.
it's
Well,
because
not
of
the minute, but it took over a month. You know?
It's the label.
That's right.
It's the label.
If
It's
I
not,
said-
it,
yeah.
it, because they're ignorant of the fact that they're identical except for color.
Mhm.
And the moment you say it's the Bunker Hill flag, well, that's okay. If
That's
you
right.
say it's the post flag, it's okay. But
The
when
minute
you
you say
say
Christian.
Christian, that means it's got a label on it, and that isn't okay. Anything having to do with Christ is not
No,
okay.
I could have been disingenuous and said it's the camp's official flag. Well, we don't have it. We may have one. We don't have one yet. We will come up with one.
you might,
And
yeah.
fly that, and no one would. You know, most
Said
of the
a
people
word.
they would say, "Oh,
That'd
what's
be
that?"
that'd be an interesting
Yeah.
experiment that we just let the cat out of the bag. But
Yeah.
you know what? Why not? Because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're not. You know.
Yeah.
Marty
Now, some
Walsh isn't
people, then
listening
there's
to
some
us.
people that, well, you know, all you're going to do is accomplish is that no one's going to raise a flag. So be it. That wasn't our
Well,
purpose.
isn't the argument of the new left or the
Diversity.
newbie people that diversity and
Tolerance.
and everybody needs a voice? Well, so or their argument is, well, then if it can't be this, then it's nobody.
I know so
So
many
then
people.
it should be nobody. If you're going to stick to that, then liar, liar, pants on fire.
That's right.
You're doing everybody else but us. And actually, dare I say it, discrimination against
That's
the
exactly
Christians.
what it is. Yeah.
But
It's
let's
obvious
not go down
the
that
corporate
road.
entity known as the City of Boston and the CEO, who is the mayor, is hostile to that view.
But claiming to be a devout Catholic,
Well, he didn't say devout, a proud one. Yeah.
proud. Oh well, I'm wondering if that word doesn't have a new
Yeah.
definition.
There
in
are
his
people,
dictionary.
I have friends who are traditional Catholics, and these people are, you know, they're really, like I say, cafeteria Christians, cafeteria Catholics, what have you. Yeah. I like this one, but I don't like that one. But you can see that there's really a hostility. You know, Chick-fil-A had contemplated putting a store, one of their restaurants, in the Boston Freedom Trail. This
Right.
was Mayor Menino. Oh boy, you would think that Adolf Hitler's grandson was setting up neo-Nazi headquarters.
Mhm.
Because he accused them falsely of supporting organizations that were criminal organizations. I mean, it was an embarrassment. It's a legitimate business that hires people. I don't care what color the skin you are. They hire you based on your abilities. But because it's owned by devout Christians who take the profits, some of the profits, and put it in foundations, which in turn support things like Focus on the Family, not exactly what I call a subversive organization.
No.
And they take a stand. They say, well, you know, they close on Sundays, you
Correct.
see.
We're not going
And that was
to open.
that was repugnant to him. And you know,
But name calling wasn't repugnant. Yeah.
so and you know, back in, I think it was this past spring, a bus came to Boston. They call it a hate bus. On the side of the bus, are you ready? You might have to block your ears. This is really hard to hear.
Okay.
On the side of the bus, it said something to the effect that boys are boys and girls are girls.
Really?
Yes. Hateful.
Where'd that come from?
It came from,
Really?
yeah, it was a Christian, it was, yeah. And old
Gosh, I haven't
Marty
seen that
Walsh, you know,
forever.
oh, I'm gonna run to that flagpole and raise up the transgender flag, and it's gonna stay here until everybody's equal. Well, we're not equal, Marty, in your eyes, we're second-class citizens. And I think it's about time that people of faith say, we've had enough.
Mhm.
You know, we had enough about this double standard.
Right.
And that we can proclaim our views, and we shouldn't worry about being fired or worry about offending our I mean,
And if we
obnoxious
are, then
about
we
it.
need to push back like the rest
Push
are.
back.
We need to push
Exactly.
back, and you know that argument. So give me an answer to this argument. So my devout Catholic friends and my devout this and my devout that, the Bible says you are to love everybody. And that's why we have to let all immigrants in, and you must allow all transgender and all LGBTQQ, LMNOP, and everybody has to come in, and you are not a Christian because you don't love your neighbor. The Bible actually doesn't say that. The Bible actually, and you correct me if I'm wrong or I'm not getting it exactly, but the Bible does say that there are sovereign countries and sovereign states, and that you are to guard your borders, and you are to take care of your citizens. So look at
Well,
that.
the Bible says not to be
huge-
unequally yoked. Basically means you don't associate with people that don't share your same values. The Bible talks, if you believe in the Bible, some people don't, they're just like this and that, but God set up nation when he confounded the languages, set up languages and confounded for a reason.
And he was totally okay with every
we're supposed
country
to love
having
our
their own
neighbor.
language.
We're supposed to love our neighbor, but we're supposed to punish evil too.
Exactly.
Well, love, everybody thinks that love is being warm and fuzzy
And
and
looking the other way.
accepting.
There's tough
and
love, too.
Just accepting.
Exactly.
And that's where I was going, love is discipline as well. And it says in the Bible that God disciplines those he loves. Those are his children.
Chastises, I think is the term, yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And, but they throw that in your face. And this is, again, my conversation, that we as Bible-believing, I'm not even going to use the C word, God-fearing, God-loving, patriotic people have got to have the answers to what I just asked you. That we cannot be afraid to say, excuse me, wait a minute, what Bible are you reading, and is that your interpretation or somebody else's, just like you throw in our face out of context? I'm going to point back at you and go, out of context. Let's read this. God does say that there are nations. He does. He totally is
And he
okay
talks
with
about
languages.
spread the gospel throughout the nations.
Correct.
At the
And
Matthew
he didn't say
28.
lay down and get stabbed by evil. Lay down and embrace
Sell
those
your
who bring it
cloak
upon
and buy
you.
a sword.
Yes. Put
Sell
on your
cloak.
armor.
Yeah, because that's a spiritual, and we are dealing with a spiritual warfare too. We see that the manifested, seeing the yelling and shouting and the violence and the broken families is a manifestation of the spiritual here. So
Exactly. And we have a government and politicians and a group of people that are allowing a anti-American, anti-patriotic, anti-Christian, anti-white, anti-everything to come into this country and destroy it. When they're so explain to me, how do we have a law that was passed in June, I don't remember the date, of 1952, that banned Islam, therefore banned Sharia law? How on God's green earth do we have Sharia law in the United States and people going, oh no we don't, you're ridiculous, you're nuts? I'm not nuts. It is here. It is being allowed. How does this happen?
well, there are obviously people in this nation that want to destroy our culture and our sovereignty, and they're in both major parties. It's not pointing the finger at one group or
Absolutely.
the other.
Agree.
I always show people, I say, go to YouTube and put in George Bush, this is Daddy Bush, New World Order speech. And that's sort of, they've never heard this before, they don't remember, or maybe some of them weren't born when it happened, but he gave a speech before a joint session of Congress announcing the first Gulf War. And he said, what we have here is a real chance at this new world order. And then he defined it as something envisioned by the United Nations. And it sounds so warm and fuzzy, but the new world order means that the United States has lost its sovereignty. And a lot of people ask, what's this about? In fact, after he said that, they stopped using that term for the most part.
Yeah,
Now
because they
use the
just
term
educated everybody and
global
now they know
governance,
it.
right? So, and when Trump, you love him or hate him, when Trump said he's at the UN and he talked about sovereignty, we operate what's in the best interest of the United States, like it or not. We may love your country, but we think about ourselves first and what's in the best interest. And if we need 1,000 doctors or 1,000 nurses or 100,000 laborers to work here, we may allow them in. But we have no obligation to let everybody that wants to come in here, that refuses to assimilate. And you know, these people coming from these countries, they're living out of they're living in desperate situations. Why don't you stay there and make things better? But
Well, didn't he talk about, Saudi Arabia has that million tent city with no one in it that
That's
has
right.
air conditioning and running water? That is a perfect example.
They
And
won't accept any.
they won't accept any. Neither does China.
But
Neither
they
does
will fund-
Russia.
Neither does Mexico. I mean,
Correct.
Oh, in Mexico, it's a felony to immigrate to be an illegal alien in Mexico. It's a felony.
right. So, you know, why is it that we have to be
They probably should put you in a mental. Who in their right mind would immigrate to Mexico unless you're a criminal escaping justice? You know? So,
I mean, it's insanity, and I feel really sad. I feel hurt that there are so many people in America that don't really get to hear both sides of this, that
They
don't
don't.
get to hear the truth, that we get all these big words and fancy people shouting at the top of their lungs and putting down Republicans. I mean, I have a person who posted the most horrendous comment on Facebook. I literally cried.
I've seen some
I
of them.
literally
I've got a
cried.
few of them too.
I mean, absolutely bashed.
Yeah.
And then everybody jumped on the bandwagon. Oh, you're so right. And then a few people pushed back and said, A, I don't like your language. B, that's not true. C, it's on both sides. And I have always been, both sides are as dirty because the lobbyists are going for both. They don't go, oh, this one needs money and this. They go, they all need money. How the heck do you think these people go in? Karen tells this to me all the time. How do you think they go in at $100,000 a year and come out, not as a millionaire, a multi-millionaire,
Yeah.
billionaires? You don't do that by your hard work.
Just look at the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah. Oh, but we're not allowed to say that because that's, racist or something. I
You
don't
know,
know.
you look at I'm not a fan of the Koch brothers.
No.
But can you imagine if the Koch brothers took over public education in the United States through something called Common Coke, as opposed to Common Core? But when Bill Gates does it, that's not a non-issue. Well, he does it out of goodness of his heart,
or Soros,
or Joe Soros, yeah. So it's
who has
definitely.
done more to undermine this.
Well, the world, and specifically America. I mean, he's undermined
Black
and
lives.
destroyed every country.
We got a few minutes left.
Yeah, we
there was
do.
a rally in Boston just to
Yeah.
talk about how government officials their activity could have resulted in some serious injuries and deaths. The rally, that's free speech rally in Boston that took place in late August. It was planned before Charlottesville. It had nothing to do with Charlottesville. The organizers were libertarian kids from Fitchburg State College. All you had to do, anyone could just went to their website, their Facebook page to say, okay, there's no connection between Charlottesville. There's no white supremacists. They were mostly nerdy libertarians that were going to speak. And I had a friend that was actually in the bandstand that could have been killed. And so the mayor of Boston, oh, we're not going to put up with this hate. We don't have hate here. We're going to protest. We're going to protest. And the governor did the same thing, and they encouraged people to come out. The cops could have been seriously injured too. So when they had this rally and realized that the major speaker was a man from India, that there were a few black people, and most of the speakers couldn't even get in. Most of the people couldn't even get in. There was no media allowed at the bandstand. Thankfully, we got some cell phone videos.
People, yeah.
Then when they couldn't find any neo-Nazis or white supremacists, they had to go after the cops. They had a policeman friend that was on duty at the time. So instead of throwing bags of excrement at neo-Nazis, they threw them at police. These wonderful
Charming.
Antifa people with their masks and so forth. And my friend, Dr. Kishore, whom I think you know,
Right.
he said these people weren't from Boston. He said the way they spoke, the way they behaved, he said they were pretty well organized and disciplined, how they were engaging their activity. So you had the mainstream media, with the exception of NPR, to their credit. They said, there's nothing here. This was before. Nothing here. Nothing to see here, folks. Go move along. But they wanted to have a riot. Now they say 40,000. I think it was not that, about 15,000. Still a whole lot, but
That's a lot.
they're using at 40,000. And it's kind of eerie. You're on top of the bandstand with about 30 or 40 of you, and you've got this angry mob. They think you're neo-Nazis, and they had signs, and some of the people had signs that said, Black lives do matter. Not Black lives, but Black lives do matter. So where's the racism here? There's no
Right.
racism here. You know,
Right.
go home.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and defining what do they mean by racism, you know? Is it the
racism in there is
human-
anyone who doesn't agree with the Democrat National Committee. I guess is
Exactly,
racism.
but, I mean, in reality, when the average person is out here talking about racism, are they talking about the human race? Are they talking about color of your skin, you know, Negroid, Caucasian, or Mongolian, a Mongoloid? Or are they talking about your nationality?
Correct. I mean, I thought there was, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought there was one race, that's the human
Human
race,
race.
and we have tons of nationalities.
That's right.
Isn't
Ethnic
that, it's
groups.
that simple. There is no other race. There is the
So what is
human race.
racism then?
A made-up word.
Well, it's supposed to be a belief that your particular race is better than everybody else's, and then you somehow manifest that in your behavior towards
But if
those other
we're
But
races.
all
if there's only
human
one
beings.
race, how is there a race? There's different nationalities, so
Well,
now
I
you're
believe there's a
saying,
lot of people who are self-loathing. They hate themselves, or they hate what for some reason, and that's too bad. But keep it to yourself. But they want to express it, and they come out and have these rallies and say they are and they have a death wish. Why would you want the greatest country, in my opinion, in the history of mankind? Why do you want to destroy it? They want to destroy
To
it.
what
And
end? Right.
What do you want to adopt? Karl Marx, by the way, he took cultural Marxism. He was an anti-Semite and a racist. You model your government after a racist and an anti-Semite? Well, they don't like to hear that.
no, they don't like to hear that. You hit them back with facts, and I think
Well,
that's
or
what we,
Stalin, or any of these, I mean, as the president called out in the speech in the UN the other day, Iranians and Koreans, the leadership, are murdering their own people.
starving them,
Starving
concentration
them.
camps.
Exactly, and
Yep.
so you want to call on us who donate the majority of the money
To the
that go
UN,
to the
yep.
UN. I mean, far more than any of the other 193 states.
Well, we pay
About 80%.
22%, but we don't have 22% of the vote.
You got one
That's
vote.
So
right.
we have
You get
one
one
vote,
vote.
so you know what, you give us the votes that match the 22%, then we'll talk. Till then, no, we're not giving it, because you know what, it's not getting to the people, it's getting to the regimes.
Your island
Again.
nation of 50,000 people has as many votes as the United States has in the
Yeah.
UN.
Well, yeah, isn't that,
Exactly.
Yeah.
so isn't that like the perfect argument about the populist vote and the electoral
Electoral
college?
vote,
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Ah, light comes on.
Can I give out the website? So,
Yes, please
yeah,
do.
for those of you
Oh,
who like to learn
absolutely.
more about us, visit the website, campconstitution.net. We have a YouTube channel, we have a Facebook page, we have a bookstore, we have the Sam Blumenfeld archives, and a lot of other cool things out there. And just do a search, Boston denies flag permit, and you're going to see a whole bunch of articles come up on this subject.
I love it, yeah, definitely, and, don't forget to call in if you have questions, or now you can go onto our Facebook and follow us, ask us questions live, and we're definitely...
And support this, your radio show with your money, with your advertising fund.
Yeah, definitely. Going to be start getting the word out there. And this has been Lynn and Karen on Conservative Chit Chat, WSMN 1590 AM, Nashua's source for news and talk. And we will see you Monday.
All right.
Thank you, Nashua. Thank you, Hal.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
This is like a hot and heavy show today.
She's
Yeah,
doing two
really.
radio shows at the same time.
I know. Ambidextrous.